Now that the campaign has moved to the raucous battleground of New York, Donald Trump is throwing back at Ted Cruz a certain phrase the Texas senator had used in Iowa.
Do you remember during the debate when he started lecturing me on New York values like we're no good? We all lived through it. We all know people that died. And I've got this guy standing over there looking at me, talking about New York values with scorn in his face, with hatred of New York.
And, of course, a reference to 9/11, Trump visited Ground Zero this week. Cruz got a less than warm welcome at his first stop in the Bronx.
Do you believe in climate change, yes or no? Immigrant community, said Cruz. It's an immigrant community. Immigrant communities.
And a Bronx cheer from this Daily News cover telling him which subway lines to take. You can all see which ones. Joining us now is Charlie Gasparino, one-time reporter for Newsday, and now, of course, a senior correspondent and all-around loudmouth at Fox Business Network. Hey, Charlie.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction there, Howie.
How pumped up is the New York press corps to have a presidential primary in the state that matters and to be able to pound the candidates in their inimitable fashion?
Right. I mean, we should point out that it matters for a change, right? New York generally doesn't matter, particularly in presidential elections. It generally always goes Republican, Democrat, excuse me. But now we do have a very strong contest in the Republican primary. And keeping Trump under 50% is a key goal of Ted Cruz. I know that from talking to his people. They believe they can pick up delegates that way. And the tabloids are going to have a field day. I should point out also I write an occasional column for the New York Post, so I'm kind of involved in this a little bit.
Sure.
And I will say this.
Since you're a tabloid expert and a little bit involved in the tabloid world, are the tabloids or just the tabloid culture of New York City determined to kick Ted Cruz around?
You know, it's a good question. I think he makes an easy target because he's from Texas. Let's be clear here. But and Donald, you know, if you're going to talk about a guy that's like a Marine and a Navy SEAL and a Green Beret as it goes for tabloid coverage and deal with the tabloid media, that is Donald Trump. I mean, he survived this vicious news cycle here back in the early 1990s when we read about his multiple divorces. Almost being I think he was insolvent at one point, and he came back from that. So
he didn't just survive. Let me jump in. He didn't just survive. He thrived. Yes. He's almost a creature of the tabloid culture. He knows how to poke his finger in the eye, get feuds going, get ink, and I think all of that has been to his benefit in this presidential campaign.
Well, it helped his resiliency. It also was his negative. I mean, I think we're at the point now where people, particularly Republican voters, I hear this a lot, in New York State as well, you know, they're sitting there saying, do we really want this guy as our president? Do we really want a guy that's, you know, so tabloid-driven that no sort of attack is below the belt? Do we really want this guy as the Republican nominee? And I think it's starting to backfire him. And I will say this, you know, the Daily News attacked Cruz, it attacked Trump early on, called him a clown, put a clown face on him early on. I will say this, the tabloids, I would say, and like I say, I write an occasional column for one of them, they're not as powerful as they used to be. The news is different now. We don't see people reading the tabloids on the subway anymore. If you take the subway, which I do a lot, it's a different culture.
Sure.
And
well, I would argue
the power is diminished.
Everybody's gone tabloid, but I take your point. Newspapers in general not as powerful. But before we go, what about Bernie? So you have Hillary Clinton. She obviously the former senator from New York, but she's from Illinois. Bernie's from Brooklyn, and he sounds like Larry David. Does that help him?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, he gets coverage. Listen, I think being from New York helps when you know how to use the tabloids and what power they have right now. And I think Donald is a master at that. That doesn't mean he's going to get over 50%, because I think at some point voters look at this, and I think you're seeing that in New York to some degree right now, and they're saying, do we really want this as our president? A guy that's, you know, this sometimes unhinged, unfortunately.
All right, Charlie, great to see you. Thanks very much. And Hillary Clinton leading in New York in that Fox News poll out this morning with a substantial double-digit lead.